We're honored to have with us today four individuals who were part of that drama that was played out in the early 1955. First, all the way from Maclin, Tennessee today, we are fortunate to have with us Jerry Flippin. Jerry is a lawyer in Gibson County. He was a member of the House of Representatives in Tennessee from 1955 to 59, then was elected senator and served from 1961 to 66. He's a graduate of Rhodes College and Vanderbilt University, a great resume if you ask me about it. And he was also president of the Gibson County Bar Association in 1966 and 67. Welcome, Jerry Flippin from Maclin, Tennessee. Next is Senator Douglas Henry. Senator Henry, if you would come on up and take your seat. Most of you know the biographical information on this gentleman, but I'm going to tell you anyway. He was elected to the House with this class right here in 1954. He served in the House until 1969 and then was elected senator in the state of Tennessee from 1970 until the present date, where he still serves in the General Assembly of our state. He's a graduate of Vanderbilt, undergraduate, and law school. Please welcome Senator Douglas Henry, Jr. Now, this next gentleman, I don't really know how to introduce him. Ward DeWitt and I used to try a couple of cases against each other back in the day, about 30 years ago, Ward? And he was a tough customer, but I don't know what he would say about me, but hopefully we won't get to that. Ward DeWitt was a partner with Trevue, Sturtevant, and DeWitt in Nashville, and later a partner at Miller & Martin. Originally, when his son Paul, who is a member of our historical committee, asked Ward about coming to this, he didn't seem that interested in it. And then when we told him that all we wanted was some stories from the 1950s, he agreed to come. So welcome, Ward DeWitt. And last but certainly not least is the man that started all of this. Maclin Davis is still practicing law. He is at the Waller firm and is a partner there. He was elected to the House with this group in 1954, only served one term, as you heard. Before that, he had been in the United States Navy and actually served on the USS Mississippi right at the close of World War II. He's a graduate of VMI College and went to North Carolina and graduated from Vanderbilt Law School and is a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers. Please welcome Maclin Davis. Jerry, would you tell us a little bit about what it was like to be in the Tennessee legislature in 1955?
Well, it was an interesting era. I was a freshman that year, and they set me down, Mr. Jim Cummings on my left and I.D. Beasley on my right. And that was education within itself. But this reapportionment thing, all of us were in law school then at the same time. We were young men trying to establish somewhat of a reputation and not do anything real bad and hope to do something constructive. And Mac brought that up, and I'm from the rural area. And my county had 2 direct representatives and a direct senator, Gibson, 60,000. That's a pretty good thing. When you ran for the House, you'd ask somebody to vote for you, and they'd say, well, I promised so-and-so. I said, let me be your second choice and get elected. But anyway, we had already, before Baker versus Carr completely played out, we were doing some things to try to get it right. But you know, there was no animosity that I could see between the rural area and the urban area. There were some formulas I was told, but we never did fool with those. That's always done by somebody in the education department. In other words, how much money went back to the counties. And my philosophy was tax the money where its money is and send the money where the school children are. And it worked pretty well. Rural people did most of the big shopping and big items in the city. And we poured our sales tax money into the coffers of the larger counties. We didn't have everything. We didn't have a Walmart, anything like that, so we'd go to the towns. I thought it was a pretty sensible thing to do, is leave things as they were. I had no problem voting against my friend Maclin Davis.
Let me interrupt that a second. And Mr. Davis, first of all, to react to that and explain, Mac, if you would, how the election took place. How did these Bellmead lawyers get elected in 1954?
Well, I think we got about 99% of the vote at the Bellmead box, and so many, that was enough for us to win. And we didn't, it was late coming in, and I didn't really know the night of the election whether I was in or not, because I was in 7th place, and only 6 got elected, and Ward and Duck got in before I did. But the next morning, Wayne Witt of the Tennessean called me up and told me I'd been elected. I was at 7th place when I went to sleep that night.
Was the voting at large? Is that how it was?
No, it was,
Davidson County was just one big district, and all of you came from the same neighborhood.
yeah, oh, yeah, large in the county. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in the districts, yeah.
Ward, tell us about that. What do you remember from that same
Well,
vote?
I remember, I believe there were 41 candidates for the House, about 2/3 of whom were young lawyers who were just kind of hoping to get the name out, I guess. And we ran at large, and the 6 top vote getters were it. That night, WSM TV, which was really in its infancy then, invited all 41 of us who had run to come up and get the returns, and they said, we're going to let you go on TV when it's determined who the top 6 are. And I remember I said, I'm not confident. They told me I was in the top 6 at that point, but the voting the votes hadn't been fully counted. And I declined, and I remember our friend Harry Lester, who later became a judge here, got on TV and thanked the public for electing him to the legislature. But about 2 o'clock in the morning, Mac edged him out and got the 6th place.
The Bellmead vote came in.
The Bellmead box came in late. That's what I remember about it.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Henry, I want to ask you, sir, what was it like to go up against the Democratic bosses in 1955 and vote for this bill, even though they didn't want it?
Well, it was Mac's idea, and Mac ran the show. I've always been kind of like Judge Briley. Judge Briley said one time, Davidson County prospers only as Middle Tennessee prospers. That stuck in my mind all these years. But as Mac points out, the Constitution did call for it. And so I said, yes, Mac, I'll vote for your bill. But actually, if you compare then to now, we did a whole lot more just as well with a whole lot less than we do now. Mm-hmm. You know, in those days, we met every year instead of every 2 years. Mm-hmm. If you look at the public acts for that biennium, 55, 56, didn't meet 56, about that thick. Today, we meet every year. If you look at the public acts for this biennium, it'd be something like that. You're paying a lot more for your legislation. You're not getting a lot better legislation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But at any rate, as Mac points out, it was the Constitution did require it, and so I signed up, went along.
Let me throw out a question just for anybody that feels like answering this. You heard Mac mention the Crump machine. How real is that? Or is that just something that we have grown up with and learned about from history? But was the Crump machine really in control in the early 50s?
It was extremely in control. When we introduced the bill to reapportion the legislature, Shelby County was the one that would gain the most. It was entitled to 12 representatives, only had 8. And we were entitled to 9, and we had 6. But all the Davidson County people voted for the reapportionment, but all 8 Shelby County representatives voted against it. They voted to reject it on second reading.
Yes, sir. Yes.
As I recall, the Shelby delegation really was controlled still by the Crump machine, even though Mr. Crump, I think, was either died or he was mighty sick. But there was a man up here who was kind of in charge of it, a guy named Jess Vineyard, who was a lawyer and a good, nice guy, but he told those 8 men how to vote, and that was just it. And they all marched to the polls together, voted together. You remember that, Mike?
Yeah,
A good
yeah.
point under Baker versus Carr from that very instance. Today, the Shelby delegation, they argue with each other on the floor. They take about a Senate time on shoving them out of stuff. In those days, Mr. Crump said the word, and they came intentionally marched. And in Davidson County, we do that by agreement among ourselves. The Davidson delegation argues among itself, but of course, the new composition Senate, I don't know whether it still be true or not, but under the old composition of the Senate, we argued among ourselves. Then on the floor, we didn't take our Davidson arguments to the floor, nor did Shelby then, but Shelby does now. Baker versus Carr.
We didn't agree on everything in the Davidson delegation. We split on other issues. Not a lot, but I don't think we were there was no rule. We had no rule that we were going to agree.
Well, some of the we were all members of the Democrat Party when we got elected. I came in 6th out of 41, I think it was, and Moore and Duck were ahead of me. 5 of the 6 that got elected in Davidson primary were on the first row. Ward DeWitt was the only one on the second row of the ballot, and he had a campaign slogan, "Don't omit DeWitt," and they didn't omit him. They voted for him.
Don't omit DeWitt.
The only reason I got elected was I was campaigning on outlawing paid poll workers, and I had these big. Had Sanders Manufacturing Company make me these big white buttons, pins that would go on you attach them to your coat lapel, and they said it said volunteer for Mac Davis on them. And although the Tennessean had its own 6 people that it recommended, I wasn't one of them. The morning of the election, my good friend Wayne Witt, who was a reporter on the Tennessean, somehow or other had got a photographer to take a picture of my wife with one of those big white buttons holding our little dog. And he got that put on the Tennessean the morning of the election. And I came in 6th, but if it hadn't been for that, I would have probably been 60th. But anyway, and the Tennessean had its own candidates it was supporting, and I wasn't one of them, but I think that picture got me elected.
Now, like any good lawyer, or like some good lawyers, Jerry has brought some exhibits with him today. Jerry, I'm going to hold this because it's a little big. Can you explain to the folks, I hope you can see this from where you are, it's fairly large, but who is that in the steam bath, and what's that all about?
These boys here been telling Shelby County had a powerful leadership, and they dominated West Tennessee just about every way. Now, my work really came after Baker versus Carr. Most of mine did, I think. But this, we put through a congressional redistricting plan. And we have about 6 of them under consideration, big maps on the wall. And my fellow representative from Gibson County, J.C. Nowell, and I, we came up with one, and the big hang-up was Shelby County. Those rascals were dominating everything. But I tell you what, we fixed them good. And when we did that, I got cartooned by the Tennessean. Now, you hadn't arrived in politics, so you've been on the cartoon of the Tennessean. And this cartoon right here shows a sweat box. And it says, the Nowell Flippin steam bath. So we put Shelby County in this sweat box right here, the 9th Congressional District, and reduced them down to 1 right in the middle of the county. And then took the rest of Shelby County and strung it out all along the Mississippi-Alabama line. And we took the side next to Millington and went all the way to Stewart County. So the rural counties of West Tennessee dominated two of what Shelby County had a hand in. We told them what to do.
Let me ask
The
you,
one in the middle, they still got it. And we did this by census tracts. We really did it right up in a room in the Hermitage Hotel. And so this is, Mr. Nowell had that cartoon enlarged, and it hung on his wall, and I always wanted it. And he died here a few months ago, about a year ago, and his son took it off the wall and gave it to me. And this was another cartoon. I got cartoon twice. I'm really making progress. And this cartoon right here, it shows the rural area in a hammock, just as comfortable as they could be and satisfied. And it shows Shelby County here. They fell off of a one-plank swing, and they're moaning and crying and carrying on. So I brought those today because they were, at the time, they were in the news. And it worked out pretty well. But I say this in conclusion, is that I enjoyed my working in the legislature with the urban people. I roomed across the hall from the Davidson County delegation, and they made me an honorary member of the Davidson County delegation as advisors on rural affairs.
all right, that's excellent. Thank you. Now, Lawyer DeWitt also had one, and Jody, if we can put up the photograph that he brought today, we'll let Ward tell us what that is.
Well, most of you know that's Mayor Ben West, who was our mayor from the early 50s till Metro came in '63. And Mayor West was a proponent of reapportionment, and he somehow conjured up the idea of this sign here showing Moore County, where Lynchburg and Jack Daniels reside. And Moore County had more cows and pigs than it did people, but they got one legislator, whereas Davidson had 381,000 people and got 7 legislators, which I thought was very good. And I happened to run across this photo out at the Metro Archives where I work as a volunteer some, and I just thought it really points up the whole thing real well. And I want to say that Mac Davis was our inspiration, and he deserves the credit for carrying the ball. I wasn't that knowledgeable, well, I wasn't that into reapportionment. I wasn't against it by any means, and I remember in my platform I said I supported it, but it wasn't on my list of big things to do. I don't know what it was, but Mac deserves the credit, and I really want to state that publicly. He was the one that did it, I thought.
Well, I think Mac deserves everything you've said. If it weren't for Mac, it probably wouldn't happen. I've always wondered, Mac, whether you were as interested in reapportionment as you were in the two-party system. That was your main interest for many years. Which is, do they play together, or are they separate?
Well, they probably should have both voted for reapportionment because it was required by the Constitution.
I wanted to show you a video clip of Mr. Harris Gilbert explaining the lawsuit which Maclin Davis and others got involved in.
Kidd versus McCandless was a state action filed in Chancery Court by a number of lawyers in different parts of the state of different political persuasions, some Democrat, some Republican, trying to get the state legislature to reapportion. Tennessee has a constitution which requires reapportionment of the legislature every 10 years when the census is made. That is, the census is made like 1900, 1910, 1920. 1 year after that, there should be an enumeration of the voters. The state Senate and the state House representatives were to be reapportioned according to the voters, not for any other purpose, but just the voters in those counties, and you would get seats according to your population. Obviously, over the years, since 1901, which was the last reapportionment act, there had been no reapportionment. The people had no power. It looked to many people at the time that the whole area of reapportionment was at a dead end.